Hello all, I've got 4 pieces of furniture on the go at the moment, all at varying stages of build. I recently had all these lovely templates CNC machined for my chair designs, so I thought I'd make up a dedicated bunch of clamping aids for these same chairs as another step towards streamlining the builds. All the chairs have mitered joints at oblique angles, so making these sets of clamping aids presents a good opportunity to share this extremely useful practice with you folks. Before we get into it, I thought it might be useful to go over some basic angle terminology. I'm sure everyone knows a right angle, 90 degrees, and a straight 180 degree angle, or a straight joint along a line. Oblique angles, as I just referred to, are anything that isn't along a straight line or at a square 90 degrees. An angle that's between 0 and 90 degrees, or simply less than 90, is an acute angle. Angles that are between 90 and 180 degrees are obtuse. Angles from 180 to 360 are known as reflex, but that's not really applicable to woodworking. As far as our joinery is concerned, our oblique angles are always either just acute or obtuse. I'm not sure this is well covered outside the school environment, and I've met and worked with so many who don't know or remember the lingo to distinguish these angles. It's useful to know, I think. Here then are 3 parts from a seat for one of my chairs. At the front, where the seat apron meets a leg, it being an acute angle means without a clamping aid to account for the angle, you'd just open up the joint under pressure. Same deal at the joint where the seat meets the back post, albeit this angle is obtuse. What's needed is a clamping aid to send the clamping force through the centre of the mitered faces where the pencil is. The first method I'll show is my personal favourite, and it's a way of using scrap so technically cost nothing. My scraps here are pine purlin offcuts from a job I was on years ago. I've had a bunch hanging around waiting for just such a use. Like I said, I'll be making pairs for a whole bunch of joints on my chairs, so I'm ripping down and cross-cutting the lot. Don't worry, I'll only be showing me making a single pair. Suitable scrap blocks cut, the first thing to do is mark the centre of a mitered face. I'll make a little centre mark with the tape, then use a square to extend the line, doing this on both mitered faces. Here's the same done on the other seat joint. This is a better one to demonstrate on for camera angles, I think. I lay a rule on the line through the mitered faces, then set a block each side so I can transfer the centre line. You want the blocks positioned to leave enough meat for a clamp between the 2 blocks to pull the joint together, still leaving enough the other end for clamping it to the workpiece. My blocks are 200mm long, ample for the clamps I'll be using. Now with the through line on the block, I use a little square to mark another line at a right angle to it. This will mark the little V cutaway to seat the clamp jaws. So this makes up an obtuse angle at 105 degrees. Although the mitre bisects that in half, 52.5 degrees on each, the mitre is not exactly halfway through the joint. It's offset to allow the back post to take the internal radius. This means each clamping block is slightly different, so I'm having to label them, as will be the case for all the sets I make. I then bandsaw out the waste, which I was sure I filmed, but obviously not. Here they are cut then. I have a couple more scraps for the opposite side of the blocks to stop the clamps marking the work. A point of note here, you want to align the centre line through the workpiece with the centre of the cutaway on the blocks. Pay no mind to the pencil through line originally marked on the block. On one-offs, I have been known to glue the clamping block onto the workpiece to stop it moving under pressure, and just cutting it off afterwards. These I want reusable, so here's a simple trick. Use a stronger clamp to clamp the workpiece to the block, an F-clamp in my case here. With a fairly large clamping block and a scrap the other side, clamp tight, there's so much friction, it's going nowhere. I then use a weaker clamp, though with ample force to pull the joint tight, to close the joint. There's no slippage and a tight joint line each side. I haven't aligned them the best here, but these will have loose tenons eventually to take care of that. The important thing is demonstrating that tight line on the meeting mitre faces, using only the pressure a cheap quick clamp can apply. I should add as well that these mitered faces aren't even finished yet. They've just been roughly templated, and you can perhaps see the slight step from the router bit swap over. They'll get machined smooth when I machine the mortises. Even so, this method still made a tight joint, so shows how effective it is. One last thing for these is that if with your clamps you're still getting slippage under pressure and don't want to go as far as to glue them in place or want to reuse them, a little piece of double-sided tape between the block and the work will add more than enough adhesion. The next method I feel like I sort of owe an apology for not showing sooner. It's these little widgets I showed in my original Banggood video some 4 years ago, in which I think I mentioned I demonstrate how to use them for clamping mitres and oblique angles, but never did. These, no longer available at Banggood, were originally sold as dual-use hold downs and clamping aids. Much like the previous example, with the flat side to the work and the round bit, or lollipop, facing out, they're a fantastic clamping aid for this task. The round nature of the protrusion means they'll perform on just about any oblique angle, or indeed a straightforward 90-degree mitre joint. They're still available on AliExpress, so I'll link them below. I'm not affiliated or anything, just out of the goodness of my heart. With postage, they're about £10 a pair. I'd need about 10 pairs when in production mode, which is mainly why I just favour using the scraps for the task. But these do work brilliantly, very versatile, if perhaps a little more fiddly to position than the wooden blocks. I have actually shown these methods in builds before, including the glued blocks, just never talked about them. Hopefully this more detailed explainer is beneficial to some of you. Just remember the importance of that centre line through the mitre and using stronger clamps to hold the aids to the work to avoid slippage. Having a good handle on this basic skill will up the quality of your joints, particularly with furniture, making it so worth investing a little time in, or money in the case of the lollipops. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, a like or a sub would be great. There's also a thanks button below if you'd like to support the channel in that way. Comments and questions welcome below. I always enjoy engaging and try and get round to them all. And all that said, as ever, if you've made it this far, thanks for watching.